Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, Peter George.
If you want to know how effective a public speaker you really are, then you should present to students and young adults. As one of my clients who routinely speaks to students likes to say, you have to know what you're doing because kids will eat you alive. But he's quick to add that presenting to young people can be one of the more exhilarating experiences you could have. And if you do it well, you'll live to do it another day. In this episode, Ryan Sweat shares with you his expertise when it comes to speaking with the teens and young adults of Gen Z. Ryan is a pastor at Beach Church in Jacksonville Beach, Florida. He has been on staff at Beach for 8 years and has been working with students for 15 years. He leads a student ministry of over 300 students and 60 adult leaders and develops and preaches at an annual retreat of over 400 people. He is also part of the teaching team that preaches to the main congregation. Here's my conversation with Ryan Sweat. Hi, Ryan. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Ryan, we all know that when it comes to public speaking, preparation is key. How can our listeners best prepare for their presentations?
Some things that I've learned along the way is about long-term preparation. And we all remember when we were little and we tried to cram for tests and how that really doesn't work. It's kind of the same thing with speaking. I think that one of the best things you can do is kind of the whole idea of marinating versus microwaving. A lot of people might try to microwave a message and you try to pull it together and all that kind of stuff at the last minute. And if you're talented, you can get away with it and probably be fine. But you don't get to do it as well as when you marinate on it. So something that I do, and I'm a pastor, so I preach. And so I will come up with, in May, I actually just did it. I will come up with all my messages and groups of messages, we call them series, for the next 12 months, basically. And so then I'll put those out onto paper. And I might know that in August, I'm going to talk about A, B, C, and D. And it's going to be all around, let's say it was about prayer or something like that. And then I will kind of break down what each message is going to be about. And so I'm never going into a week and thinking, oh, what am I going to talk about this week? What do I do? Or I'm not going into a week and just, it's the first time I thought about it Monday morning. And then I got to, speak it or preach it on Sunday. And so I have that. And then a couple months from each of those series, they might be 3 weeks, they might be 2 months, whatever, starting, I basically go through and just kind of do a short outline. So a couple bullet points. Here's my main point. Here's what I'm talking about. Here's the direction I'm going. So then I have that. And then about a month ahead of time, I do a little bit more of an in detail outline. And so when I get to a Monday morning and I start thinking about the next Sunday of speaking, I've already known for a long time what my subject was, what topic I was going to be talking about, and even a little bit of a bullet point outline. And so that allows me to kind of marinate on it so I can know what's coming up. And so it's just thinking about it as I'm driving. Something happens with one of my kids and they do some ridiculous thing. I have a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old. So they do something ridiculous. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's the story. That's what I'm going to tell. If you don't know what you're going to talk about, you can't take life and pull it into messages and pull it into your speaking. But I'm able to because I kind of know what's coming up. And there are times where I might not get to message prep until Wednesday, but I don't have to be super worried because I've already got that outline. I've already been kind of thinking about it, allowing it to marinate versus microwave. And we all know kind of what happens. Marinating, you get more flavor, you get more consistency. Microwave, we've all bit into a hot pocket and one piece is frozen and one piece scalds your mouth and you think you'll never taste again. And so we don't want our messages and our speaking to be that way. And so marinating is super huge and allowing, and that's different for every different avenue of speaking. But the more that you can at least have a broad idea far out in advance, and then kind of funnel it into a little bit more specifics, then you're going to be able to just pull more into it. And you see a stat or you see a story on the news or whatever, and you're able to pull that in. So you're not trying to just pull it all together at the last second.
I thought I heard every metaphor possible for public speaking, but I've never heard marinated versus microwaved. It's absolutely perfect.
Well, good. Hopefully it's helpful.
Definitely is. But it's not only about preparing, of course, it's also preparing in an effective manner.
Yeah.
What's your secret for preparing excellent messages in less time?
Anytime anyone's asking me about speaking, and again, in my context, preaching, and they're trying to figure out kind of how I do it, the number one, by far, piece of advice I have is, and this isn't earth shattering, but I don't think everyone does it. Practice out loud and do everything how you're going to do it when you're on stage. And so what I do is I will get up on stage in an empty room somewhere on our campus. I will hold the microphone in my hand. I'll have my notes on the table. I'll have everything set up. I will talk like I'm talking with a few hundred people in the room. And I'll tell the same jokes and I'll do the same intro. And I will talk literally like I'm talking in front of people. And I'll do that. I try to do it 2 to 3 times per message. And the amount of time that has saved me in preparing I couldn't even calculate it, because it used to be like for the first couple of years of me speaking, I'd be thinking through everything. So I'm reading my outline. I'm thinking, okay, I'll say it this way and I'll say it this way. And I don't know when it dawned on me or when someone told me, but it was just like, I'd get on stage and I'd have it thought out how I wanted to say it, but then I had never said it. So sometimes I'm working through it on stage and I'm like, I don't like the way this is coming out. And the worst place to not like the way something is coming out is when everybody's in the room and you're on stage and you're trying to change it on the fly. When I just do that, there are so many things that I'll be like, I don't like that. And I just cut it out of the message. And there are parts that as I'm talking about it, I only had meant to spend a minute on it. And then I end up talking about it as I'm just going and it's just natural 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, that part's strong. I need to emphasize that part, get rid of this part. And so something I've even started to do is when I don't feel a message coming together and I feel like it's all over the place, I'll literally get up on stage and I just start talking. And sometimes it's just ridiculous. And I make sure those times no one's in the room because I'm I'll even say out loud, wow, that's terrible. I'm cutting that. I talk to myself and get rid of stuff because that is my fast forward button for getting where I want to go. Because even when it's all a mixture of just random thoughts, even when I have on my outline, insert story here, and I don't even know what the story is, I'll just go vomit it out and it's terrible and it's really long and it's all over the place. But then I sit down and now I have clarity of okay, I don't need that. I'm switching that to the intro. I'm putting that at the end. I'm flipping these 2 things. I'm not telling that story. I am telling this story. It just makes me prepare so much faster. And so I would highly encourage anybody. And I'm not saying, I would say, don't even do it in your room sitting down. Do everything the same. If you're going to have a headset on, I don't know, put some AirPods on or something. If you're going to have something in your hand, put a spoon in your hand or a water bottle in your hand, something in your hand so that even your gestures and the way that you walk and all that is prepared. And then you're able to do it so much more effectively. I'm so much more comfortable on stage because I know what's coming out and I know I've said it before and all that kind of stuff. And so that's the number one thing I would do, whether you're doing a 5-minute little presentation or a 30-minute or an hour about any topic. Practice out loud, preferably on a stage where you're going to be, all that kind of stuff.
I think that's the part a lot of people skip.
Probably.
It's unfortunate too, because like you said, that's where you find out how you want this all to be as opposed to how you wrote it.
If it doesn't connect with you, it's probably not connecting with your audience. If you're bored by it, your audience is going to be bored by it. So sometimes I'm talking, I'm like, I'm bored. And if I'm bored, that's a bad sign. And so I'm like, I've got to reconfigure this. But I wouldn't know that if I was just sitting for hours poring over a computer and typing in stuff and all that kind of stuff. And I think it also helps us become more concise because let's say you're supposed to speak for 25 minutes or do a TED talk, like that 15-minute type thing. If you are practicing and you're at 30 minutes, now you know, okay, I've got to cut stuff. I can't just hope that it's going to be shorter because it won't. It's actually probably going to be longer when you actually get up there. And so I think it really helps with timing too, and really being able to stay within the restraints of whoever's inviting you to speak, that kind of thing.
Are you ready to work directly with Peter and develop your public speaking skills? Then schedule your free call with Peter at petergeorgepublicspeaking.com/call. Again, that's petergeorgepublicspeaking.com/call for your personal coaching and support. Now back to Peter and his guest.
We hear it all the time. Speakers should be authentic and relatable. How can our listeners make sure they accomplish this each and every time they speak?
Here is where a lot of people will struggle, because I think they will jump to, okay, well, I've got to do something from pop culture. I've got to do something that's cool or relevant. I've got to say something that's funny. I got to entertain people. That's the only way they're going to be drawn in. Those things are all true. Those things are all great. But if you try to get up there and talk about sports and do some, relevant kind of comparison of some athlete, and you don't know about sports, it ain't going to work. You're trying to get up there and talk about music, and you're not into that music, it's not going to work. If you're going to try to be funny and you're not funny, definitely not going to work. I think the number one thing you can do to relate to people is just be you, be you, be you. I'll say it again. Be you, be you, be you, be you. Be who you are. That was one of the most important things for my growth as a speaker. Was there was this point, I listened to a few speakers and I realized the ones that I really liked, they were just having a conversation and being themselves on stage. And I was like, okay, I've just got to be me. I've got to talk to 500 people like I'm talking to 5. I've got to be relatable. When you're just yourself and you're authentic, people are going to respond to that. Now, they may not like it. Fine. Because they may not like your personality or speaking style, but they're at least not going to say you were trying to be something you're not. You were kind of doing something that was corny or whatever, because you're trying to like a circle into a square hole or whatever. Like, it's just not really, it doesn't really work. And so I think, if you're more of a teacher type person, then teach. If you're into a lot of movies and music and pop culture stuff, use that stuff in your speaking. If you're like a loud, emotional type speaker, be loud and emotional. But if you're quiet and like kind of, and then you start trying to be that way, everyone's just going to be like, this isn't coming off the right way. And I think that's just the number one thing I've learned to connect to people and stuff, is just to be myself. And again, sometimes people might not like it. I've had people get up in the middle of my sermons and leave. I don't know if they're going to the bathroom or if they're just leaving because they don't like me, but I'd rather be me on stage, because I think that's the best chance of reaching the people that are in the audience. And I think we can always, whether you're a public speaker or not, you can tell when someone is not being themselves, or when they're trying to be like some other speaker, they're trying to be funnier than they really are. It just comes across the wrong way. So I think just being yourself, and that takes a while to learn how to be that on stage. It takes a while to be like, I want to learn how to be me in front of 100, 200, 1,000 people. But I think that's such an important thing to being able to relate to people.
Now, we have to relate to any audience, but you speak a lot to young people.
Yes, I do.
Tell us how you keep the attention of what might be the most distracted generation in the history of the world.
I'm super distractible myself, and I'm 34. I can't imagine how distracted our 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds are, who have grown up with iPhones all the time. I never had an iPhone until I was, 23. And so although I have them in my hands now, I didn't grow up with them. And so more and more our generation is, especially in America, or if you want to say Western civilization, we have technology at our fingertips. We can see anything at any moment. You're having a conversation with somebody and you're not sure what the answer is. You don't just talk about it like you used to, or one person, talks like they're right, and then you just all go home and forget about it. Like right away, you're Googling it. Well, what year did they win the championship? Oh, it was 1983. Okay. You're instantly wanting answers. You're instantly wanting entertainment. And so when we're sitting down, I don't know about you, but I find myself, I'll sit down to watch a show that I really like. And I've been excited to watch this show, and I'll still be looking at my phone. Why do I do that? Because I'm distracted, because I'm easily distractible, because my attention span is about as big as a gnat. I think that there's a few things we can do, and we're never going to win the battle against an iPhone. It's just not going to happen. We're not going to win the battle against the addiction that we have to the buzzing in our pocket as we're somewhere else and we're thinking, who texted me? What was that notification? But I think there's a couple things that are helpful. I think we've got to be visual. I think the more that we can do that's visual, even if it's just putting a point on the screen, or showing a picture, or showing an example of something. Sometimes I'm talking about things and I'm like, I don't need this picture, if I show it, it's just going to help engage people. Like a few months ago, I don't know why, but I talked about the guy, I forgot what his name is, but the tallest guy in the history of the world, or at least recorded history. And he was 9 foot something. And I could have just referred to him, but I showed a picture of him next to like a normal sized person. And so it just engages the sight. And we all know like some people are just visual learners. So I think we have to have visual connections to people as much as we can. Something in your hand, if you pick up a water bottle even, or you pick up a chair and you're showing somebody rather than just talking about it, I think that's helpful. Something that I've done a lot recently is participation. And when I say participation, it might be like I ask questions and they're not rhetorical. And I know people are always like, oh, is he just being rhetorical? I don't want to be the person that talks during the talk. And I'll even say, this isn't rhetorical. Say your answer. And as people speak and get involved, or a lot of times I'll just say, repeat something. And I'll do that a few times because we know that physiologically or whatever, mentally, if you say something, you're probably more likely to remember it. And so sometimes I might have a point. If my point was stay the course, hey, everybody, stay the course. Everybody says it. Say it again with some emphasis. Everybody says it. Okay, now they have participated in the message. They participated in what's going on, and that re-engages them. And even if they were looking at their phone or whatever, now all of a sudden they're re-engaged with what you're talking about, even if it's only for the next 20 or 40 seconds. Sometimes I'll get them to do physical things. So like if I feel like something's even, especially with young people, I'll do this more recently. I might be in the middle of something and just be like, everybody just stand up. All right. And we'll just go through a stretching thing. Say, all right, lean over and stretch out that rib right there. Take a deep breath, lean over and take a deep breath. And guess what? When people sit back down, they're more awake, they're more attuned, they're paying more attention. Again, they've taken something physical and engaged into the message instead of just sitting and watching and falling asleep. So I don't always do that stuff. I always do the repeat stuff. I always have people repeat what I say now, at least once or twice in the sermon or the message. Every once in a while, I'll do the thing. And it might be in the beginning where they get up and do something, or where they talk to somebody next to them or whatever. But I think things like that are out of the ordinary, that make it not just a one way, I'm listening, those engage people's minds and allow them to pay more attention. And again, we can't win the battle with an iPhone, but we can do some things to help engage the audience more than just trying to be really entertaining. Because I find myself, I speak for a living, but I find myself listening to other people and just going to my phone, looking at it and totally missing out. So that stuff's always helpful for me. So since I'm ADD, I just do what's helpful for me for other people and hope that it works for them.
As you know, Ryan, keeping an audience's attention is one thing, but getting them to take action is another.
Yeah.
What advice do you have?
Like 4 steps. 1, be clear with your action step or your call to action, and put it towards the end of the message. So what is the one thing? And a lot of times we try to have like 3 or 4 things as speakers, and we're like, especially preachers are known for that. It's like, well, do this and this and this and this and this. And people are like, my head's about to explode. Give one clear action step. One clear action step. That action step should be short. Make it short. One short, clear action step. And then repeat it over and over and over again. And again, have the people say it sometimes and repeat it back to you. I want to make sure I leave a message and that there's no doubt that they remember what they're supposed to do. Because I've left so many sermons or TED Talks or whatever, YouTube videos. And I'm like, yeah, but what was the point? Like, they said some nice stuff. There was some good research in there, but what am I supposed to do with it? But when there's that one clear, short, concise action step at the end that I've repeated and all that kind of stuff, it really helps. And then, so be clear with your action step, make it short, repeat it. And then the 4th thing, give examples. So give examples of how it plays out. Give examples of how they might do it when they get home. Don't just say, be kind today. How can you be kind today when you get home? You could do the dishes for your wife because you hate doing the dishes. You could get up with the kids in the morning, when instead of waiting and hoping that she thinks you're asleep and ignoring it, you could actually get up and just go do it. Be kind. Take in your neighbor's trash cans. Hold the door. Buy someone's coffee. If you give examples, then people are like, oh yeah, okay, I could do that. Instead of just like this vague call like we see on the news and like t-shirts and slogans all the time, like, we just gotta love each other. And people like say it like, oh yeah, we should love each other, but they like don't even know what that is in normal life. And so it's like, okay, well, let's make it specific. Okay, well, what could I do today? What could I do tomorrow? Because usually 24 hours later, you're going to have completely forgotten it. So maybe if you have a very clear action step and you give them some examples, they're able to do something that day with it. And it kind of, again, jogs their memory as to what you spoke about. And I think that's really helpful. So give them those examples and don't make them try to figure it out on their own.
That's excellent advice. Because you're right. We all get up there and talk. And if we give people advice, but don't give them that example, they may say, that's a great idea. I just don't know how to do it.
Yeah. And even if it's just a small first step, if you were talking about starting a business or something and you gave them how to start a business, now that you have the information, go do it. It's like, hey, why don't you go home and write a business statement, like a business mission, just a one-line thing. Okay, well, now that'll get you started. And if you do that, maybe there's a chance you'll follow through on this and this and this. But if you just tell someone, hey, go invest in real estate, have fun, like they need to have a first step. Like give them something to kind of like something bite-sized, something small, something that's not like drinking from a fire hydrant. Give them something to help them take a first step, because that's what we're usually trying to do when we speak. We're trying to help persuade or teach somebody to do something of value.
What's the biggest way you see speaking to young people being different from speaking to adults?
Oh, man, I think adults are a lot easier to get to laugh. I don't know if that's even valuable information, but like I can get up in front of adults and have them laughing like crazy and they think everything's funny. Students or young teenagers, they'll just be like, cool, nice joke, bro. Like, move on. Sometimes I feel like it's easier to get engagement back from the adults in terms of laughter and really paying attention. Sometimes adults are an easier crowd. If you can speak to young people, teenagers, kids, oh my gosh, kids, elementary. I mean, probably the best speakers in the country are elementary school teachers because they've got to figure out ways to get these kids to pay attention and all that kind of stuff. And again, a lot of times adults really are wanting to be wherever they are. And so they want to hear what you have to say. Sometimes that's not the case for young people. And so we've got to figure out lots of creative ways to keep them engaged. I'd say that's the biggest difference. It's just engagement and difficulty of engagement. I would say something that young people like, but that I think probably is valuable with older people that we should always be doing as speakers is challenging. I think young people like to be challenged, but I think people in general, they may not like it at first, but I think in general, people, they don't want to just be like kind of talked down to and like, oh, you're doing great and everything. I think they want a challenge, but I know that for young people, that's something that has been really successful for me is a lot of people think like millennials or Generation Z or whatever it's called, like they don't want to be challenged and they just want to kind of go with the flow and they're lazy and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of times they just want something to be a part of that they think matters. And that's what we see a lot with social justice right now and all that kind of stuff is that young people are engaged in it because they think it matters and they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And if they are, and you get them on that, they'll go 100 miles an hour for you. But you can't just tell them what to do and think, oh, they'll do it. You have to challenge them and explain why and show them how their little contribution can help impact their community or the world or whatever. And I think when you can do that with young people, it helps them be engaged in what you're talking about and actually do something with it.
Yeah, I'd take adults any day. Kids are tough.
It's a tough crowd.
It really is.
Teenagers. Yeah.
If you want to test how good you are, go speak to kids.
That's right. For sure.
Ryan, this has been a lot of fun. How can our listeners learn more about you?
If you want to hear my messages or get information about me or speaking or preaching at different events, that kind of thing, or just get in contact with me about really anything, you can go to my website, ryanwsweat.com. It's got an email on there and all that kind of stuff for contacting me. So that'd probably be the best way.
Okay, it's in the notes.
All right.
Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Tune in Monday when you'll hear another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George, and again Thursday for your next episode of Quick Bites, public speaking tips and techniques you can digest in 5 minutes or less. Until next time, remember, when it comes to speaking in public, you've got this.